courtesy of looking at me when I'm speaking to you? I mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, if you had any kind of manners, if you...
Goddamn Bushmaster.
Is it poisonous?
Yeah. But very tasty.
I wanted to ask you, in this movie, your chemistry with Michael Douglas is so strong, and obviously it carried on to 2 more movies.
Yeah, we had a good time together. But, you know, we have to remember that people forget sometimes, it wasn't just Michael and me, it's also Danny DeVito.
Yes.
I mean, it's 3 of us in all films. And because Danny and Michael have an extraordinary friendship. It goes back to when they were roommates, you know, starting out in New York. And the 2 of them together are just a real threat.
Yeah.
You know, a terrible threat, actually. So it was more the 3 of us than just Michael and me.
Back off, me creep, just back off. Oh, I'm the creep, huh? Well, at least I'm honest. I'm stealing this stone. I'm not trying to romance it out from under her.
Well, wait a minute now. Going for the stone was my idea.
That's what all the good con artists want you to think.
Can I ask you about chemistry in film? Is that like in life? It's just something unexplainable that happens, or is it created by the actor?
Oh, I think it's probably a combination. Certainly, you do your best to get along with and to create a friendship with whoever you are acting opposite of, and hope that that's a true friendship, that it will truly, even though, you know, it is of necessity a little artificial. You know that you're only going to be together 4 months or something, you know, and, you know, there's a definite end to the, and myself, I've always lived in New York, so, you know, when a film ended, I'd get on the next plane. And so it was kind of like, you know, school just ended. So even though you do try very hard to find common ground, to find an attraction toward each other, and hope that develops through the working.
But you do actively look for that attraction.
Well, you have to open yourself up to it, open yourself up to friendship, I think, with the other person, yeah.
So you finished reading your biography, you finished, had a degree in fine art from the university, you were smoking hot, you had talent to burn, but it took some time until you got your breakthrough performance at, in Body Heat. And my question is, looking back, was there something you could have done different, or is it just a necessary time to learn your craft?
Perhaps my book wasn't as clear as... I think I've been extraordinarily fortunate. My first year of New York, when I got out of university and moved to New York, I had an off-Broadway play, you know, at around 6 months. And then around 9 months, I got a soap opera called The Doctors. And then around 11 months, I got a Broadway show, a Broadway play. So that I was doing both. So within the first year, I was supporting myself well as an actor, which is not very common, frankly.
Right.
What you would call the big break, I suppose, would be Body Heat. But in truth, I was supporting myself by my acting always. Yes, there were stints when, of course, I'm waitressing and stuff. You know, I don't know anyone who doesn't. Even after we completed filming Body Heat, I came back to New York, and they didn't pay me hardly anything. You know, I mean, under the philosophy, I suppose, that I should be paying them. But I was paying rent in New York and I was paying rent in Los Angeles. So there went my salary pretty much. So when we completed shooting Body Heat, and it's 6 months until the release, I went back to waitressing for a couple of months just to pay the rent in New York. Seems weird, but that's what you got to do.
I'll buy you a drink.
I told you, I've got a husband.
I'll buy him one, too.
He's out of town.
My favorite kind. We'll drink to him.
Only comes up on weekends.
I'm liking him better all the time.
So after Body Heat, you kind of steered away for a while from doing femme fatale. Was that?
What I had thought and what I always wanted, I hoped and was determined never to be typecast. Certainly not as a femme fatale, because there is a real age limit to that sucker. That only lasts a few years. And then you start to look foolish, probably. My first job after Body Heat was Arena Stage to do A Midsummer Night's Dream. Then, when I came, I decided I'm very funny, actually, in case you haven't noticed that. But, of course, no one in the film industry knew that. So then I wanted, when I read The Man with Two Brains, and I thought, okay, now this we'll still have the femme fatale nonsense, but I will also be extremely funny. So, but of course, Carl Reiner, who I saw last week actually, was very sweet. Yes, they're willing to have me come in and meet, but is she really funny? So I have to throw myself around and crawl up Steve's leg and do all these odds and things till, yes, okay, so I'm funny. So after that, after Man with Two Brains, came romancing. Okay, she's sexy and she's funny, but can she be dowdy and insecure? Okay, let's wipe off all the makeup, cut up some sweat clothes, go in, stagger, bump into furniture, be clumsy. Oh, look, she can do that. So then after romancing, then I went to Crimes of Passion, because that was fascinating. And the idea of working with Ken Russell, was something that I've always felt that he was a genius, a rather self-destructive, shooting himself in the foot genius, but a genius. So the idea being that if you look at the list of films and in their progression, you will see that each one has a contrasting factor to the one before. That I have never consciously or willfully repeated the work that I have just done. Partly because it's boring, just did it well, thank you very much. Want to explore something else. I mean, to my mind, if I do not try things that I may not be able to do, if I don't take a risk of failure, then I'll never be as good. I'll never know how good I can be or get better. You have to be willing to risk to fail in order to test how you grow. Seems a simple formula to me. So if you look at my films with that thought in mind, it's also a reason why many people have not been able to put together my body of work. And it's like I'm constantly running into people and they'll say, oh yeah, you were in Accent. Oh, Pritzi's Honor. Oh, of course, Virgin Suicide. And they're all, hopefully, such different kinds of films that's why people are sometimes surprised that I was in them all. Well, it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. How much, and that's maybe the last question I'm going to ask you before really I'm going to open up to the students.
Yeah, it's much more fun when they have
to say
yes.
Exactly. So while you guys line up behind the microphone over there, whoever wants to ask a question, line up.
Oh, good. We're going to have
please.
some brave ones.
Yeah.
Oh.
I wanted to ask you just one question. How much of those decisions are yours as an actress, and how much is like the team behind you, the agent, the
There's
manager?
no decision but mine.
Really?
No one makes a decision about what work I do except to me. Ever. No, they try that, they're fired. Simple as that.
Okay.
It's like, no, I'll tell you a reason for this. Is because when Body Heat, for example, they came to New York, Larry Kazan and Paul, his producer, to audition actresses, obviously for Maddie Walker. I was not allowed to audition for Larry at that point because the casting directors in New York, said she has no film experience whatsoever, waste of time. So I went out to LA 4 months later to test on a different film, and the casting director out here said, I want you to come in and read. And we know what followed. But after I got the film and everything, Larry Kazan told me later that he had actually first thought of Ann Archer, who's a lovely, lovely woman, and a good actress. But her agent said to him that she would not audition, that either it was an offer or he could walk away. And Anne, when I asked her, because I directed her in a film later, never knew about this. Right. Can you imagine? I would have killed the asshole. Do you know? No. Nobody decides what I should or should not read or what work I may or may not do. You've been very patient.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
First of all, it's a great honor to have you here with us.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, this was, Romancing the Stone was your first film with Robert Zemeckis, and
yes.
Roger Rabbit came afterwards.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about why he chose you for Jessica Rabbit.
For Jessica Rabbit?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think that's a little obvious. Well, I hope it's a little obvious. I have a lot of fun with my voice, and certainly it's he knew I could do that. I mean, the fun that I have when I see or think about Jessica Rabbit is the truth is that I was tremendously pregnant throughout that. So I would waddle into the studio, and in fact, there's hair on my face. The last day I was supposed to record, I went into labor. So I'm in NYU hospital saying, call the studio, tell them I'm not coming in today. I think that, Bob said he never thought of anyone else. He just said, call Kathleen, see if she's available.
You gotta have the rabbits to make the scam work.
No, I love my husband. You've got me all wrong. You don't know how hard it is being a woman looking the way I do.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Yeah, hi, it's a pleasure to attend this presentation. I was a big fan of yours back in the 90s. Some of us were still there. And I want to ask you about War of the Roses. What was your approach to that movie? How you got that part? And how was the experience of doing it?
Well, Danny DeVito was directing that. And so he came to New York, and I was actually starting to set up a Broadway play. And he told me that I had to postpone the play because I had to do this film with Michael, and that his wife, Rhea, wouldn't let him come home unless I said yes. So I did push the play back, Cat in a Hot Tin Roof. I pushed it back 6 months so that we could come out and do. That was, I'll tell you one rule that we had, the three of us, was that nobody left the studio at the end of the day without hugging each other, because you could really hate each other at certain points in that movie, when we were literally trying to kill each other, so we had to make sure that we didn't take that home with us, and bring it back the next day, maybe even fortified. So we tried to, first of all, protect our friendship, because those guys got pretty vicious. But then also we found when we were coming toward the end of the film, and the fall of the chandelier and everything, the suits, the suits, came in to try and talk us into shooting an alternate ending, where the chandelier would fall. You wouldn't see it hit necessarily, or yes, you could, but then you would have two ambulances shot outside, and you'd see, people, the two of us, I guess, being carried into the ambulances, and each ambulance going off in a different direction, clearly to a different hospital. And we said, no, these people have to die. They are so awful, and they're such terrible people, and look, it's a black comedy. We don't make a happy ending or a possibly happy ending, So that was what was good. There was between the three of us, between Danny and Michael and myself, we had enough, power to stand up to the suits and say, no, that's not going to happen, So.
I remember going to see it in the movie theaters, and I thought that only women will laugh at that stuff. And I was surprised how many men, every time you destroyed something of his, the men would laugh even louder than the women.
That is weird. Wow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Ms. Turner.
Hello.
First of all, happy Valentine's Day. You're welcome.
Or as we also call it, Single Awareness Day.
Yes. That's what I'm celebrating today. My question for you, from somebody who has grown up watching so many of your movies, you've had such longevity in your career, and I know this business can be so fickle. How have you been able to maintain that?
Mostly, I think, because of being very, very skilled at theatrical work as well, and being theatrically trained. I always knew that as a woman, my life in film would be much shorter, probably. My starring life in film would be much shorter than my time as a theatrical lead. So I never went more than 2.5 years without going back to stage, be it the arena stage, the Long Wharf stage, Toronto, and of course New York Broadway. Because first of all, I love it. I love theater more than anything. You can have a lot of fun with the camera. You can achieve things with the camera that you cannot possibly achieve on stage. On the other hand, being on stage and in doing a continual arc of acting without interruption and immediate responses is so incredibly alive. You just, I feel, just that. And the other side is that as women get older, we get more complex and more interesting. And filmmakers really don't write very complex and interesting older women. They tend like toward old women, either to type, either you're the love interest, or you're the grandmother, or you're the bitter professional woman, who had a bad love life. There are these categories that. Now, on stage, they actually tend to write a full character. Wow. So I would say that a lot of my longevity, and the truth is, I've been acting professionally for more than 35 years now, and I know, and I'm booked through 2013 right now, which is pretty nice. Yep.
Thank you.
But I do truly suggest keeping your skills on stage, just for the quality of your work, whether it be on stage or on film.
Hi, Mr. Turner. Big fan of your work. Quick question: when you're talking about not being typecast, in your career you've proven such versatility, and in recent years, a lot of great stuff on TV, including Californication or Friends. And it seems like I was just curious if there's something you haven't ventured yet, and if there's something you wanted to try that was still kind of you're still waiting for.
Well, yes. I mean, what I'm doing right now. I mean, the character I'm playing now at the Geffen is it's a one-woman show based on Molly Ivins, who is a political humorist, writer, journalist. really quite an extraordinary woman. And it's a one-woman play, so it's essentially a 75-minute monologue, you know. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of words in 75 minutes, I gotta tell you. But it's a great deal of fun. But next week, when I finish this, then I start a play where I'm a foul-mouthed, recovering alcoholic nun. That's my next job. I'm doing a national tour of a play called Hi. I can't. Truly, what attracts me to a character is exploration. Is if I haven't done this before, what will I find out? You know, and secondly, the essence of it. To me, for example, the play I'm doing now is about liberalism, freedom, and being proactive as a citizen. Things that I believe very, very strongly in and spend a great deal of my time, supporting. The other play is the conflict between faith and addiction. This is fascinating to me also, because I think the nun is trying to help a meth addict, a 19-year-old young man who is addicted to meth and really doesn't want to end his addiction, doesn't see any reason why he should. So that's another battle that I find fascinating. Job after that will probably be would be an interesting issue, because that would be both directing and starring. And I haven't done that yet. So there you go, you see? That's enough reason to do it.
Thank you. And in the spirit of Single Awareness Day, will you be my Valentine?
I promise.
That's a kind no. I'll take it.
Thank you.
Hello, great honor. I would like to ask about the legendary John Huston that you collaborate with him.
We did Pritzi's Honor, and it was his second to last film. The last film he shot before he died was The Devils, huh? He was, when we worked together, he was already extremely ill with emphysema. You know, could not function without a constant oxygen. So this may have affected his directing, because essentially he would say, to Jack and me and the cinematographer, Andre, I'm very bad with names, who was brilliant cinematographer. He would say to the three of us, do something you like and then show it to me. So, in fact, I felt like I had much, much more input than I had ever before in a film. I would say, come on, the whole scene in the bed when they're rolling, who's on top, and they hit the headboard and then they roll off the thing with Jack going, my fucking back. Anyway, that was mine, and with the cinematographer, Andre, saying, yes, he can, now that took it took 19 takes, I think, which is a lot more than I'm used to. Because to time the camera move with the rolling over was extremely difficult. You didn't quite know how far you were going to go, away. And as you can see in that shot, it's really quite close, So that took so I got to block that one, say. And Jack got to block the scene that starts with having me draped over the side of the sofa, and he gets up. That obviously was Jack. Anyway, so that was really quite exciting. And then Houston would, watch us run through the scene and tweak it, make it more, make it less. Only one day did he really sort of take over. It was the scene where Jack's character comes to find her and confront her about her ex-husband, or her now dead husband, about the scam that she's pulled with him. And John kept setting up a shot, and we were in a small room, and this is a real house. There were no movable walls or anything like that. So it was tremendously tricky and meticulous to light and to find the right angles. And then we'd be ready to go, and he'd say, no, I don't like it. We're going to turn this another way. And so we spent, I don't know, 8 hours probably. You know, relighting and changing the angle on that scene, on that shot. And finally, I was so frustrated. I was so, you know, could I just do it? You know, and I hear John saying to the cinematographer, "Oh, I think she's ready now." I said, "You shit," you know. But that was the only time he played me like that.
Thank you.
Hello. Well, actually, I have 1,000 questions. Well, not 1,000, but 1,001 questions for you.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so first question. Question number 1. Was this movie shot in...
You're really doing this, aren't you?
was this movie shot in Mexico or Colombia?
No, en México.
¿México?
No, la seguridad para filmar en Colombia sería imposible. El dinero sería... It would be half the budget or security to shoot in Colombia at that time.
Okay, now you just responded to question number 2. Do you know Spanish? Like, now I know that you know Spanish.
Sí, yo viví en Cuba y 5 años en Venezuela, un rato en Cali. Mi papá trabajó para el servicio diplomático y por eso vivimos en muchas partes del mundo.
Whoa.
Yeah, French and Italian too, guys.
Now, can somebody please translate what she said? Well, that's amazing. Well, okay, question number 3.
I know, no one expects a gringa to be fluent in another language, right?
Yeah, I know.
Well, actually, they don't expect Americans to be fluent in another language, which really we should take personally, guys.
Yes.
Do something about.
Yes.
A very wise man said, if you have only one language, you have only one way of thinking. I agree. Work on that.
I've been telling some of the actresses and actors that I have met here, you know what, you should know Spanish, you should know Spanish, you should know Spanish. Yes, you should learn Spanish because, I mean, you will have more opportunities, I'm just saying. However, question number 3, I mean, how was it to work with Manuel Ojeda, Ashita? I mean, even though you know Ashita, right?
Manuel Ojeda really did not have any English hardly at all. So I worked with him so he could learn his lines phonetically. And you can hear it, you know, he, give me this, you know, he was really, and sometimes I think he was completely, you know, just going off the phonetic memory that we had created. Not really sure of the sense of it. I mean, Manuel is a fantastic actor in Spanish, you know, and Alfonso Arau, you know.
I mean, they were the big shots back in those days, right? Even Chachita, Evita Muñoz, Chachita.
I didn't.
You never
have
talked
much
to her?
do. No.
You know the little fat lady that she was like beating up the guy?
Oh, she was wonderful. No, I loved her, but I don't know her body of work.
Yeah, because she was like a big famous star from the golden age of Mexico.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was like, I was wondering if you one day you went with them and, you know, got some shot of tequilas after work, after set, shooting or whatever.
Did. well, with Alfonso and Manuel, but now with Chachita.
Now with Chachita?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Hello. I would like to ask a question. First of all, tell us about your experience in Venezuela. You started to say that you spent 5 years in there.
In 5 years where?
Venezuela.
Yes, in Venezuela.
Yes.
Well, that was when I was, let me think now, I was 8 through 13. So I was, in junior high school? I moved to London from Caracas. So I went to high school in London, which is also obviously where I had access to such extraordinary theater, you know, and it was in those days when I was in high school, a theater ticket was cheaper than a film ticket, which is why I never went to movies. I just went to plays. Had a lot to do with it, actually. And I had started to audit classes at this British acting school, the Central School of Speech and Drama in London, in Swiss Cottage. Any case, I'd intended after high school to stay and pursue another couple of years at this school in London. But my father died very suddenly, and I had to take my mother back to the United States. And so then I ended up at Southwest Missouri State University. And I'm talking about culture shock, you know. I had lived in the United States for 12 years, and suddenly I'm in Springfield, Missouri. And of course, I had a strong British accent at that point, and I held on to it, you know, just as because I was afraid, I suppose, more than anything. But I can remember my first boyfriend said that the first contact he had with me in Missouri was, he said, well, you know, how do you like it here? And I said, well, it's all right. I said, but everyone's rather stupid, aren't they? So you can imagine how popular I was. On the other hand, I got all the Shakespearean leads. Anyway, I learned. You know, in hindsight, it was excellent because it made me an American actress rather than a fake British one. So, I mean, it's a pity that we learn the most when we're so unhappy. That being happy we just don't learn as much, do we, when we're happy. However, as long as you learn.
Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit more about your first breakthrough in movie in Los Angeles? Because you started to tell us about it, but you didn't develop interesting story about this.
Auditioning for Body Heat was what I didn't know at the time. I mean, amongst the vast other stuff. Anyway, there used to be this extraordinary casting director who was the great grand dame of casting directors in New York, whose name was Marion Dougherty.
Of course.
Now, she had she trained three women. Julia Taylor, Wally Nocita, and Gretchen Ronell. These were the three that she was passing the mantle on to. Well, unbeknownst to me, they had seen my stage work, and they had a competition to see who would put me in a film first. When I could not get into audition in New York for Body Heat, when I went to Los Angeles to audition for a different film, Wally Nocita was casting Body Heat. So she won. You know, she won the bet between, I don't know how much it was, but in any case. And what happened was, I went in and read for her. She told me to sit still, and she went and got Larry Kazin and Gallo, the producer, and asked me to read it again for them. And I did, and we talked a few moments, and then I went back I was renting a room from another actor, and the phone rang, and would I come back the next day? And I said, yes, of course I would. And I had dressed up for the first audition in a very, a tight dress and high heels and done hair and makeup and all this stuff. So I went back to the second in jeans and a T-shirt, thinking, let's show more, let's show something different. And Larry handed me a scene that he had not allowed anyone to read yet, actually. And my response to being extremely nervous or insecure is to get very cocky. It just seems to be my automatic response. So I lay down on the sofa here, and with me, and I read through this scene. And Larry said, I never thought I would hear that out loud the way I hear it in my head.
Nice.
Okay. So then they set up the screen test with Bill. And there were other people testing also. I don't really know who, and I don't really want to know. I wasn't Ann Archer, unfortunately. I hope she fired that asshole. Anyway. So we shot we shot 2 scenes from the film, Bill and I. And then we were told to go away for 2 weeks while they decided. So they called me back in after 1 week. They called me back in.
I don't blame you for hating me.
And it was, Larry and Fred Gallo, the producer, said they were fighting with the studio because the studio didn't want to entrust such an important role to someone who had no film background whatsoever. And the first thing I had to do was lie about my age. that at that time I was 25. And Larry said, no, you're not. You're 30. I said, okay, I'm 30. I never played my own age until Virginia Woolf. I always played older, a lot because of the voice, you know. And then we were in this room that was all white furniture, white rug, white every fucking thing. And with these studio people, and in the middle of the table was this huge ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts. And obviously they'd been sitting there for a long time, you know, talking. And one of them said, well, you know, are you funny? Can you be funny? You know, play drunk, show me drunk. Something like that. So I was holding the script, so I started to I threw the script down and watched the ashtray go flying all over this white rug. And said, oh, fuck. You know, I got down on my hands and knees and I'm picking up butts and everything. And they start laughing. So I guess that's how I got it.
Thank you.
Long story short.
Good afternoon, Ms. Turner. Just wanted to ask, what is your method when you approaching a film? How do you go about breaking down the script? How do you prepare for it as an actress? And, you know, what do? You go through breathing methods? You go through...
Okay, let's start with the fact that I hate the word method.
Okay.
I teach a course at NYU when I'm home in New York for a semester. It's called Practical Acting, Shut Up and Do It, which is basically how I approach acting. Yes, you do, of course, break down the script in terms of the arc of the role, because in film, unlike stage, you're going to take all these pieces out and shoot them out of sequence. So in your own mind, you must know where you end this one scene so that when you come back to it, you can start on the same level of energy, intensity, or emotion as you move through that scene, where you're going to leave that scene because you've already shot the scene that follows that. So you must keep in mind, I call them bases. You have to, if you looked at it like a baseball field or something like this, you have to make sure that you touch the emotional and intentional bases that you've set, the markers you've set for yourself as the shooting goes on. And that's your job, really, to find a consistent, I'm trying to say, no, I mean, you'll have somebody watching the continuity of when you lit a cigarette or when you lifted that glass, fine and dandy.
Right.
But it is your job to find the consistency of the character's thought, intention, and emotion. So, yes, you plot that out in your mind and try and, when you get a shooting script, when you get a shooting schedule, you have the right, you know, because they have actually done this already, to ask to see a shooting schedule and see in what sequence the scenes are going to be shot, and then you can prepare for them in that way as well.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Hello. I'm just wondering, how do you feel about watching yourself and the films you've made?
The first time I saw Body Heat, and I never saw any rushes or any dailies. Larry did not allow that, which I think was actually quite wise, because the only time I did do that, I did go in, and then I felt, you know, if I had seen something that I'd shot a scene that I was following, then I felt that was frozen in time already, and I had to, so I didn't go to rushes after, but anyway, so I never saw anything until the film was released, really, in a theater. And I remember my first thought, truly, was, oh my God, there's a record. You know, there'll be this piece of film long past my lifetime. And it was kind of thrilling, but it was also extremely frightening, the thought that that I would be open to anyone's judgment for till the end of time. I don't know. I mean, come on, it's scary. You know, people are going to be judging this for as long as they wish to, whether I'm there or not. But it was also quite exciting, the thought that I would have left this record, which also then, you know, brings me to my ethic, which is never cop out. Never fucking cop out. You know, no matter, I want to be able to look at myself and know that that was the very, very best I could do that day. That I never said, it's good enough, or I don't want to do another take, we've got what we need. You know, I want to be sure that every time I see a frame of a film I'm in, that that was the best I could do. Even if I look at that film a year later and go, I should have done it that way, or why didn't I add that? Doesn't matter. That I did the best I could the day I did it. And that I can be true to.
Thanks.
I think it's great.
Hello, it's me again. I would like to ask...
Yes, I know.
I would love to ask you about Virginia Woolf and how was the process for Martha's character? I think it's very difficult and very deep.
Martha, I mean, Virginia Woolf is one of those plays that mark an actor's career. It had only been done twice in New York before by Uta Hagen, the original production, and in 1975 by Colleen Dewhurst. Not since then. Partly because Edward Albee did not allow anyone to do it. There were many, many actors who asked him for the role, and he always said no. And I read the play when I was 20, when I was in college, and in my arrogant way, decided that when I was 50, that would be my role. So when I turned 49, I thought, I better start, getting going on this. So I was able to, this woman, Liz McCann, produces all of Edward's work, and I took her out to dinner and got her to set up a luncheon with Edward. The luncheon went very well. We didn't talk about the play at all. We talked about politics, and thankfully, we share the same basis. And at the end of the lunch, he said, well, what do you want? And I said, I want to read it for you. I want to put it together a reading, and I just want you to listen to, let me read Martha for you. And he agreed. And so, I asked Bill Irwin to do George. And we had Anthony Page, who directed all of Edward's work in England, in London. He flew in because he wanted to do this. And we had 2 days rehearsal, I think. And then we read the play for Edward. And at the end of the first act, we took a break, and Edward came over to me and said, I haven't heard anything like this since Uda. And I said, and you've only heard one act? See, that's that cocky reflex again, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I get cocky. Anyway, so he listened through with us, all these producing people. I didn't even know half the people that were there or why they were there. But in any case, we finished, I went home, and they called me about 3.5 hours later and said, when do you want to start? So this was fantastic. This was my dream come true. And at the same time, I was up against that fucking movie, right, with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, which to me has never, it stinks. I mean, it's not the play. Mm-hmm. Mike Nichols, I told him, should be shot for what he did. And Edward actually wanted Betty Davis and James Mason for those 2 roles. Oh, wow. Wouldn't that have been cool?
Wow.
I think. Betty Davis. Oh, my God.
Yeah, that would have been very, very cool. All right, guys. But he didn't have the power at that time to control. And so what I was fighting this image, in a popular image, that this play was just about 2 drunks screaming at each other all night. Now, who the hell wants to go spend 3 hours in the theater for that? And my my premise and what I wanted to explore in the play was the humor. I mean, it is incredibly fucking funny. There are huge belly laughs throughout the play, right up until the end, you know. And no one thought of this play as being funny. And I was determined that I would change that image of the play in its totality. So, I'll tell you, we did 8 months on Broadway, we did 6 months in London, and then I did 6 months on a national tour. And it wasn't until the week before the end that I thought, I've got nothing more here to find out. You know, she was that dense, and the language and the possibilities were so layered that it took me 500 performances to say, okay, I don't think there's anything left for me to discover, you know. But that's what dreams are made of for actors, yeah?
I wish they did it at HBO like they now do, so you have a record of
Well, it's filmed at Lincoln Center Library, but that's only for, you can go see it once, but that's all. You can never see it more than once.
Really?
Yeah. It's some equity thing, I don't know.
In New York.
And how was the famous line with Betty Davis? What a dumb. How was it?
The way when she first comes in?
Yeah.
It says, what a dump. What's that? Who's that from? Who said that? Who said that? Yeah. What a dump.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Yes? Somebody else?
Hello, Kathleen.
Hello.
I just want to say you have the most fascinating and magnificent voice that I ever heard.
Thank you.
And for me, it's very important to hear in person because I'm going to play part of Jessica Roger on stage. It's like animated character. Can you give me, please, one direction how I should play this character?
I was doing a master class last week. Today is Tuesday, yes, at UCLA. And I got to I do juniors and seniors and undergraduates because, frankly, and this is just me, I don't see any point in getting a graduate degree in acting. Why the hell aren't you out there doing it? Anyway, that's just me. But this young woman who had her voice was a little pitchy, a little nasal, and she asked me, and I said, "Would you stand up, please?" And she did. I said, "How tall are you?" She said, "I'm 5'10". And she was built for 5'10". I mean, she's not fat or anything, but solid. She's a big woman. I said, "All right, the first thing you have to know, and you must agree, you will never be an ingenue. You will never have an ingenue. Almost all the leading men you will encounter will be smaller than you. So, first thing you've got to do is get your voice down so that you will be attacking roles of more substance and density than an ingenue, because, I mean, give it up. This isn't gonna, no offense, but at 5'10", and you're not an ingenue. And I said, go get a vocal coach, immediately start working on lowering your pitch and creating your... Now, there are many ways to do this, actually. You should read a book by a man named Arthur Lessac, which I believe is still in print, on the art of speaking. He's one of the most brilliant vocal coaches, and he just died a couple of years ago. The idea being that you want to increase and hold on to the oral and nasal cavities in your head, so that, for example, if you were to yawn, feel the huge stretch that happens in the back of your mouth when you yawn. How it opens up, everything there. If you can hold on, it's a muscle. You work that, you work that, you work that. Once you can hold that kind of space, you have resonance. You have what they call timbre. And then, of course, it's placement. Ideally, when the voice is aimed at the correct part of your mouth, you feel nothing in your throat. You never should. You should never feel strain. You should never feel tightness. It should be as though, you know, there are nights on stage when I just go, oh, doesn't that sound good?
I suppose it's my way of living in another age.
If you did that, I never would have met you.
All of this is training, practice, doing it. Get a good vocal coach and get to work.
Thank you, Catherine.
Welcome. Well done.
Anybody else?
I would like to ask one question about your future directing work. You said you would like to try yourself in this direction. And also about, continuing the question before, how did you get rid of your British accent?
Well, my British accent came from two things. Partly because my father grew up in China. And so his schooling was under the British system. So my father had a bit of a British accent that I had been hearing my whole life. And then the 4 years in England, I pick up accents very easily, very quickly. Anyone who has a good ear for music, you know, who can hear notes, if you're not tone deaf, accents are like hearing notes in music. You can, you know, just go there. And so it was just a question of deciding to stop using that, you know. Okay, enough of that. That trick didn't work. Yeah, let's try another. Not that I would ever pick up the Missouri accent, thank you very much. No, I don't find that attractive. You know, it's what we call the tight jaw syndrome, that, you know, out there, if you never let your teeth come apart, then you're talking right. No, thank you. I really have no desire to copy that. What was the rest of your question?
About how did you get rid of your British accent? And
Well, it wasn't a question of getting rid of it. It was a question of stop doing it.
Yeah, giving it up.
Just not doing it, yeah.
And you're directing future work.
Well, I directed a film in New York, play in New York a couple of years ago, Crimes of the Heart, a Beth Henley piece. And it went very, very well. It was very successful. And so I am considering more directing work. At this point, it's a balance. I'm still loving acting too much to give it up for directing. So the idea, this offer I have to direct and star in the piece is really very enticing. That way I'd get to do both. And I actually love directing. I thought that it might be difficult for me, you know, to direct my leading ladies, because I'd be wanting to say, oh, no, don't do it that way, do it this way, you know. But in fact, what I found was there are 6 characters in the play. Not only was I fascinated by working with the designers, you know, to create the costume, the sets, the lights, all of these elements that, the detail is fantastic. When it came to the actors, I found myself, it wasn't like directing 6 actors, it was like knowing 6 characters that I was doing. I mean, I felt as though I could act each one of them, even though a few of them were men. Never stopped me before. Anyway, so I found that quite fascinating. I got to explore each character instead of the individual viewpoint that one usually has as an actor, to only be responsible for your own exploration. So I think directing is really intriguing. I will continue to do that.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Okay. 1 or 2 questions.
Hi, my name is Virginia Diaz. I know that the acting life can be a little crazy sometimes, and sometimes a lot of disappointments. So my question to you is, what are some things that you do to keep yourself focused and keep yourself centered?
Well, I think that it is very important to have a life outside of the work. And although I fear for you guys, man, holding on to your privacy is going to be a serious bitch, you know. But I think you have to have friends outside the industry. I think it's good to have family. I had a 22-year marriage, which was almost all good. I have a 24-year-old daughter who is wonderful. Most of my best friends are not in the business at all. My very best friend is an accountant. You know, I'm not I would like people outside my world, so that we don't talk about acting all the time, or like, this is boring. I just did it all day. Do I have to talk about it all night? No, thank you. I think it's important to have a much fuller life than just acting, just the work. You know, explore other things. Go to museums, man. Read books about history. You know, learn as much as you can. Acting is really very narrow, and don't let it define your life.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Incredible.
Hi. I'd like to ask a question that's maybe a bit personal for my situation, but I just arrived in LA a few days ago, and I want to stay here to do acting, so I'm probably going to stay on a student visa first. But my actually real goal is to be here in America and work as an actor and study as an actor and basically have the freedom to do everything I want. So I wanted to ask you, do you know...
Will you marry me?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, I wasn't going to ask you that one. But so I wanted to ask you, do you know of any actors coming from other countries, how they did it, or did they subscribe themselves in a business or whatever?
Wow. I don't want to give you any false advice. I don't have enough expertise to help you with that. I mean, but certainly there's a great deal of information you can gather on that. Go to immigration online, man.
Yeah.
You know, find out how long. I mean, your student visa must be at least, what, 6 months?
Yeah, I think it's the first year, but you can't work in the first year. I want to do both. I want to study and work as an actor. So.
Well, you can hide the work. Oh, I should have said that. No, I didn't say anything. I cannot give you advice that I'm not sure of.
You have to see a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not my job, man.
Nah, cool. I just thought, you know, actors themselves, they're more creative than lawyers, generally speaking, so they usually find a way.
Yeah,
so
I'm not going to give you anything I don't know. I
Okay,
can't.
no worries. Okay, thanks
bad
anyway.
advice. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, I think last question, because
I have to go.
Kathleen has to go. She has a show tonight. She's working.
Yes, I have a quick question. How come you chose acting as your profession?
Quite honestly, it's all I ever wanted from the time I was around 12, and which was rather silly, because no one in my family had ever been connected to the arts in any way. And at that time, I was living in Venezuela, so I never saw theater. I rarely ever saw movies. I just thought that this would be my ideal job, would be to be an actress. Then, when I was 13, we moved to London, and the first night I was there, I went to the theater. I snuck out of the hotel and went to the theater, and I saw Angela Lansbury doing Mame. And then it hit me for the first time. I could earn a living this way. You know, not just as actor, but that it could be. And of course, in England, there's a tremendous respect for acting as a profession, as a serious, legitimate profession. Not something that happened to you because you were sitting on a stool in a drugstore, you know, one of those stupid stories that you were discovered, you know. No, that it is an actual profession you can be trained and you can be paid for. Well, as soon as I figured out that they would pay me for it, that was that. That was all I wanted to do.
Okay, thank you.
I did have a fallback plan.
You did?
If I didn't make it as an actor, I was going to go back to school and go into the Foreign Service.
Wow.
That was my second choice.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think we have to go. Yeah.
So we had a privilege of spending Valentine's Day with a fantastic romantic movie and an incredible talent that came here and shared from her experience and time. I found it totally invaluable, and I'm not even an actress, so you can imagine. So thank you so much.